I'd like to introduce myself first. My name is Harry Hochheiser. I'm an associate professor of biomedical informatics at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm the director of the Midas Coordination Center. So I get to be your host for the meeting today. This virtual meeting is coming on, just 2 weeks after we had our in-person meeting in Bethesda, which I think we were very pleased at. We had about 160 people, had some very good discussion, a lot of interesting sessions, and a very strong showing and participation by I would say a very strong cohort of graduate students and postdocs, and it was really nice to see the junior side of the field there and interacting with some very good discussions. That said, when we started planning this meeting back earlier this year, we knew that meeting in person was not going to work for everybody, and we had to do a virtual option. Actually, when we started planning, we were concerned that meeting in person wasn't going to work for anybody. So we're very feel grateful that we were able to hold the meeting and to have it done in a way that I think was at least reasonably safe and didn't cause a lot of difficulties with COVID was something I'm very pleased with. But we knew we were going to have to do something for those people who couldn't travel, didn't feel comfortable traveling, and were still more comfortable with the idea of doing a virtual meeting. So we set up this session as well as a companion. Hopefully we can capture at least some of the energy and the enthusiasm that went into that meeting back in the earlier part of this month and have it talk today. So we've got a good program with several in-depth presentations, some lightning talks, a strong panel towards the end of the day. And I'm thinking this will maybe not be everything the in-person meeting was due to the limitations of being on Zoom, but hopefully it'll be enjoyable and stimulate some discussion and some collaboration. And that's really our goal. One of the things that was really clear from this meeting was that the meeting earlier this month, I should say, that even though so much of what's been going on over the past couple of years was all about COVID, that is not what this field is all about. Of course, a lot of people have put a lot of energy into doing some really great work along those lines, but we saw so many presentations that were taking different approaches and looking at different things that either were not COVID or they were looking at COVID from a perspective that is not the one we're usually seeing. And it was really great to see the range and body of this work that's out there. And I think particularly as we sort of move into a world where we feel that we can take a little bit of attention and bring it to other areas that go beyond the immediate urgency of COVID, we're going to see a lot of interesting work going on. And it's going to take the field in some really interesting places, whether it be going back to flu, which obviously hasn't gone away, but has received a little bit less attention lately, or whether it's looking at things like monkeypox, or it's trying to model many of these things together in one common framework. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting innovation. We'll hear about that a little bit today. And one of the things that's also very much on my mind from the perspective of the Coordination Center is to begin to sort of take a breath and reflect and think about what's been learned over the past 2.5 years. What has the response to COVID uncovered about the work that this field of infectious disease modeling does? What does it tell us about outstanding research questions or places we should be going that people haven't gone? And I want to encourage people to think about this as they look at their own work and as they hear the presentations today, to use that lens to say, well, where does this lead us as we move forward? We had a very interesting panel discussion about that at the meeting in Bethesda. We've got a great group later today at the end of the day who's going to have a similar discussion. Different set of people, same questions, will likely be a very different feel, but I think it's something that everybody in the field should be really asking about. What should we be doing? And I want to just sort of say that at the Coordination Center, we've been putting a lot of effort ourselves into thinking about some of these questions, and we've been continuing our work on COVID data and curating a lot of that and managing it, putting it into our Project TICO format. But we've also been adding some monkeypox data and trying to bring that up to speed. And so reacting to the situation as best possible. And of course, we're continuing a lot of the work that we've been doing on reproducibility and rigor of modeling, which is something that is part of our research. And so we've been building out tools for data sharing, ontologies, some of these things to help the field work a little bit better. And we're going to continue to work along these lines because that work really goes beyond any specific disease and it continues to be of interest. And we are also working on supporting the Scenario Modeling Hub, which is something we've been working on very much for the past couple of years, and we're going to continue to do that. So you'll hear a lot about all of these things today, and I'm hoping it provides some good start and helps build some collaborations and discussions. So thank you for coming. I think we're going to see more people joining in, but I also want to take a minute here to give some thank yous to some of the various folks behind the scenes who make this happen. First to our colleagues at NIGMS, Dan James and Ravi Chandran, who had been part of the team for quite some time, have both moved on to other roles within NIH. And so we now have some new representatives who we're working with, including Jean Yuan, who is our new scientific coordinator, and Han Nguyen, who is our program officer. And so we really appreciate all of their effort. And of course, the leadership of NIGMS, particularly Dorothy Zook, the deputy director, and John Lorsch, the director of NIGMS, have been big supporters. We're also going to hear from in a minute, and Dorothy Beckett, the director of the Biophysics, Biomedical Technology, and Computational Biosciences division of NIGMS, who's here to welcome us. But before I hand the floor over to Dorothy, I wanted to just thank the great team that we have that has put all of this work together. Jess Kerr, who worked with us for quite some time, leading things up on the PIT team, has moved on, and Kristen Kropf has taken her place, and we really appreciate all of Jess's efforts and Kristen's work in stepping up there. I'm not going to run through the whole team, but I have a great team here at Pitt who helps me out with a lot of these things, both on the research and the administrative side, and they're fantastic. Monica Buchanan from Cosmic Events has been our event planner and done a great job with this meeting and the in-person meeting to help it all go. And I'm sure folks who came to Bethesda saw Monica all over the place. And finally, I want to thank Stephanie Shadbolt. Stephanie is at the Fred Hutch, but she's worked closely with us in keeping the Midas Coordination Center going. And she has really been a huge asset, a huge help, and just in general, wonderful person to work with. Stephanie is leaving at the end of the month and will no longer be working with Midas. And I just wanted to publicly thank her again for all of her efforts and wish her well on her next set of endeavors. So really can't stress how important Stephanie's help has been, and really the help of the whole team in making all of this work. And we really appreciate that. So with that, I would like to hand things over to Dorothy Beckett, as I said, the director of the Division of Biophysics, Biomedical Technology, and Computational Biosciences at NIGMS. And Dorothy is going to say a few words to welcome you. Dorothy, really appreciate you taking your time to be here and hope you enjoy the day. So thank you. Becky, we're having an audio problem. We really cannot hear you. I don't know what's wrong, but. No, that's not working.
You might have to exit audio and then rejoin back in.
Okay, the fun of working with Zoom. Hopefully Becky will be able to join. Dorothy will be able to join in another second here. I don't know if anybody's heard that problem before of the audio distortion and has any great solutions. Then I would love to hear them. Let's see here, Dorothy is joining back in. Let's see if that helps.
Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So why am I here? So I'm Dorothy Beckett. I'm the Director of Biophysics, Biomedical Technology, and Computational Biosciences here at NIGMS. And that last branch, the Computational Biosciences, is headed by Jean Yuan, who is has been working with the steering committee and will be your scientific coordinator. So I'm here because we manage the Midas program in NIGMS, and we're very excited about it. Why are we excited about it? As I go, and one of the things we have to do in NIGMS is to monitor the progress of the awards that we make. And the progress that Midas has made over the last few years, in my mind, has been really critical to the disease modeling efforts. The growth in the network of investigators is impressive, and it continues to grow. As you know, there are now 860 members. There's been very active weekly updates and monthly webinars on all kinds of topics related to disease modeling so that all of the members can be current. What I'm really impressed with is the growth of the young investigator community in Midas. It's very clear that this is a really skews toward a young membership. And the nice thing is that the Coordination Center is providing the young investigators with training opportunities, with information, career information. The weekly status calls with the CDC, of course, keep you informed about the public health end of things, and the really nuts and bolts provision of data and computational resources are invaluable to the modeling community. And then I'm very struck by the implementation of programs to enhance diversity in the modeling community. So in my view, in looking at the successes of Midas over the past few years, I'm very impressed. So what are the challenges? And because there are challenges. And I actually never like to say anything is a challenge. I say it's a challenge and it's an opportunity. So I think and Harry touched on this, the issue is, we've been I think the pandemic obviously was one of the big attractors in building the Midas community, that people saw that we were in a crisis and they saw that they could contribute to the science of managing or ameliorating that crisis. And the issue is, how do you maintain the momentum from my viewpoint? And as Harry said, first of all, you learn from, what did you learn over the past few years? And sort of a retrospective, how did the pandemic affect the progress of disease modeling, if it did? And what are some lessons learned for, perhaps in terms of approaching other and diseases such as the flu, monkeypox, and the unknown pandemics that will undoubtedly arrive at some point. And then, so there's maintaining the momentum. The second is, what I noticed is very interesting. We decided to do a little bit of research on funding of Midas investigators. So obviously, to do this kind of modeling, these studies, you need to have funding. And I was very surprised, the team was very surprised to find that the number of individual investigators in the Midas network who were funded by NIGMS is actually relatively small. So how can we ameliorate that? It's what's the opportunity? So the opportunity for us at NIGMS is to inform you of the funding opportunities and Han Nguyen, who is the program officer for the Midas Coordination Center, is very excited about really spending some time with the Midas Network, just giving informational sessions about the different funding opportunities. And we have funding opportunities for all stages of careers, from undergraduates through established investigators. So we're hoping that in the coming year, at least for the immediate future, we'd like to contribute perhaps to your webinar series to provide a seminar and an opportunity for the Midas investigators to ask questions about how to pursue funding opportunities through NIGMS for their disease modeling activities. The third challenge, I think, is data. And I've heard this when I talk with Dorit, when I talk with John, when I've talked with even with Harry and with Ravi, who used to be the scientific coordinator, and now Jean is learning this. It's data, data, data. And curiously, this morning I opened the New York Times, and what did I see? I'm going to tell you a little story because it's so interesting that this was in the New York Times this morning. So in the New York Times, there's a section at the opening page. So you open the front page of the New York Times. We still get the paper version because I love to read the newspaper as paper. In its paper form. And it's basically called Inside the Times. And so it's the story behind the story. And this is a great story. So the title of this is called Digging Through COVID Data. And it's an interview with a journalist named Sharon Lafreniere. So Sharon Lafreniere is an investigative reporter, and she's been looking at the pandemic, and she's been looking at how public health officials have managed during this time. And as part of the interview, this one question was posed to her. It said, and the question is, the pose is, what are the main issues with the way the country manages health data? And her response is, it's striking. So she was doing studies in Alaska. So they're doing a lot of sequencing variants in Alaska. And so what it says here is, it's striking how each health department buys its own systems and they make their own individual decisions without any coordination. Many end up with databases that do not connect easily to other systems or to the CDC. They can't make the data flow. Instead, it's a series of manual hops, skips, and jumps through disjointed systems. And I think that encapsulates both a challenge and an opportunity. That is, somehow these systems have to change so that you have data that is useful to more useful to the entire community. You have the data, but you also have access to the data. And I think I'm going to end there, but if you have any, I don't know if I have any time for questions, but those are my welcoming remarks. And I hope that you continue on your really great trajectory that I've seen so far.
Thanks, Dorothy. You might have time for a quick chat question, but I'm going to interject here that we will definitely work on getting Han in to do a webinar. And I've placed a link to Sharon Lafreniere's story in the Times in the chat. So if people want to take a look at that, it's a great story. I saw it on my physical copy of the New York Times the other day. And I just looked at it and I said, yeah, no kidding. So if we have a quick question or two for Dorothy, please fire away, unmute yourself and go right ahead, or just raise your hand.
Okay, if there are no questions, I think maybe we should move on.
Yes, and thank you, Dorothy, for your remarks and your kind words and your encouragement. Really appreciate all of that.